Forget everything you think you know about Thor. The comics, the movies, they've got it all wrong. The truth is far more complex, far juicier, and much more scandalous. Hidden deep in Africa, centuries before the name Thor even existed, there was a real god of thunder whose legend would become distorted into myth over time. This is the story of Zurli, the original god of thunder. In the heart of Africa, nestled between red mountains and green forests, there lay a powerful kingdom, Kambala, a place where the people believed the gods walked among them. The sky itself was the courtroom of the gods. The voice of thunder was not just a natural phenomenon. It was the judgment of the gods themselves. Those who did wrong, like betrayers or murderers, were taken to an altar. If thunder struck that night, it meant the gods had passed their judgment, and the guilty were no more. But the most powerful force in Kambala wasn't just the gods. It was a man, Zurli, a prince of Kambala who would become known as the god of thunder. Zurli's father, King Obare, was a wise and beloved ruler. His mother, Queen Nyla, was a gentle and kind soul. Tragically, Queen Nyla died shortly after giving birth to Zurli. King Obare, devastated by the loss, remarried a year later to a woman named Jalea. Queen Jalea was proud and self-centered, and soon, she gave birth to a son, Koko. But where Zurli was noble-hearted and loved by the people, Koko was different. He saw Zurli not as a brother, but as a rival to the throne. Zurli, growing up to be a prince of compassion and wisdom, was loved by all. He trained in both the arts of warfare and governance, preparing to someday rule the kingdom. Koko, however, was spoiled by his mother's ego and developed into a cruel, ambitious young man. But Zurli loved him nonetheless, believing that family should stand united. Tragedy struck when King Obare fell ill. His condition worsened, and the once vibrant king could no longer lead. Zurli, ever the dutiful son, cared for his father, while Queen Jalea busied herself with power schemes. As the king's health deteriorated, the people feared for the future of Kambala. But none feared more than Queen Jalea, who saw an opportunity. She wanted the throne for her son Koko, not Zurli. One fateful morning, when Zurli went to bring his father his breakfast, he found himself alone in the room with the king. After feeding his father, blood began to pour from the king's ears and mouth. Zurli screamed for help, but it was too late. King Obare was dead, and in the blink of an eye, the blame fell on Zurli. Queen Jalea was quick to accuse her stepson of murdering the king to seize the throne. With the royal council swayed by bribes and false promises, Zurli was brought before the kingdom to swear his innocence. The gods were called to judge, and Zurli, desperate, cried out to the heavens. But the sky was eerily still. No thunder, no lightning, no divine judgment came. Queen Jalea screamed that the gods had abandoned him, and with that, the final sentence was passed. Zurli was to be executed. Before the entire kingdom, Zurli stood before the chopping block, betrayed by those he trusted. But as the sword came down, something unexpected happened. The heavens erupted with a mighty roar. A tornado of light and thunder descended from the sky and struck Zurli's lifeless body. When the storm cleared, his body had vanished. The people were left in awe and terror. Koko, now crowned king, was nothing more than a puppet. His mother, Queen Jalea, controlled the kingdom with fear, turning Kambala into a dark and oppressive land. The people suffered under her rule, and the land, once prosperous, fell into decay. Far away, in a quiet village called Vuzala, something miraculous was happening. On the night of Zurli's execution, a storm raged across the land, and a mysterious light crashed into the earth. The next morning, a young girl named Daira found a strange man lying unconscious in the bush. He was naked, confused, and unable to remember anything except his name, Zurli. Daira, a kind and quiet girl, took him in. She fed him, gave him clothes, and the two became friends. But Zurli, now living as a man without memory, carried a powerful secret within him, a power that had been granted by the gods. He spent his days working with Daira's family on their farm, unaware of his true nature. But tragedy struck again. One day, Daira mysteriously drowned in a nearby well. Zurli, heartbroken, went to her lifeless body. And in that moment, something incredible happened. A surge of lightning erupted from Zurli's body, and in an instant, Daira came back to life. The villagers watched in awe, some terrified, others joyful. Word spread quickly of the man who could control lightning, and the village began to call him Amba, the god of thunder. As the years passed, Zurli's power only grew. When soldiers from a nearby empire came to demand tribute from Vizala, Zurli stood up against them. The soldiers were no match for the god of thunder. Lightning struck down their weapons, and Zurli's power shook the earth beneath them. But as Vizala flourished, the tyrant Queen Jalea and her son Koko heard of the village's newfound wealth and power. With greed in their hearts, they marched to take it. When Koko arrived, he demanded the riches of Vizala. That's when Zurli appeared. "You take nothing from these people," Zurli declared, his eyes glowing with divine fury. As Koko looked closer, a wave of realization swept over him. This powerful figure was his half-brother. Fear gripped him, but before he could act, Zurli's thunderous voice rang out. "The people of Vizala pay no tribute to anyone," Zurli said, his voice booming like the heavens themselves. Koko's soldiers hesitated, recognizing the true prince. Then, with a thunderous roar, the soldiers dropped their weapons and knelt, proclaiming, "All hail Prince Zurli." The storm of memory came crashing back to Zurli. He remembered everything: his betrayal, his murder, his divine transformation. He forgave the soldiers, and together, they turned against Koko. The people of Kambala rejoiced as their true king returned. Zurli rode into Kambala, and with a single gesture, called upon the storm. Thunder struck those who had wronged the kingdom, and Queen Jalea, in fear, confessed to her crimes. She begged for mercy, but Zurli, now a god, exiled her from the kingdom. Koko, rejected by his people, fled with her. Zurli became the true king of Kambala, and peace and prosperity returned. He married Daira, his only true friend, and together they ruled justly. But as the years passed, Zurli's connection to the gods grew stronger. During a great thunderstorm, he vanished into the sky, leaving the people to whisper that he had become the very thunder itself. Generations passed, and the kingdom of Kambala became a distant memory. But travelers still spoke of the god of thunder, the righteous prince who commanded the storm. The story of Zurli, the African god of thunder, eventually reached the ears of European explorers. They took the tale back to their lands, where it changed over time. The name changed, the face changed, but the legend of the righteous prince who wielded the storm lived on. And so, the world would come to know him not as Zurli, but as Thor, the god of thunder.